All right, here we go with part two of this episode on to the Wheel of Time Dragon Reborn talk.
And I will be trying to find the right pages because I have the hardback.
The roadside book copy.
The roadside book copy, yes.
So when last we left off.
And ladies, remember, mine is hard, Heath's is soft.
Yes.
Mine is also bigger.
Speaking of the ladies, that's where we left off here, chapter 25, with the ladies.
Well, and it starts off with them kind of a little bit of complaining about losing sleep because of working in the kitchens and stuff. So I had a meme for that.
Yeah. You'll get it if you're following along.
Again, we talk about those bit characters that people really love. I loved Mischief Laura.
Yeah, and she pops up here and there. I don't want to get too much into this quite yet.
Well, because it's all things dreams are spoilery.
Yeah, that gets spoilery, but you know, I will say, stupid series. Why did we watch that?
Well, let me open up because you brought up the series, but I want to kind of talk about our direction and something I would like to see as we go forward, because we're going to go through these books, probably about 5 or so. It seems like 5 or so episodes a book, 6 episodes a book. And we're going to ultimately get to the Sanderson books. And those that are watching, please keep spreading, because what I wouldn't mind is almost like a comment battle on, did Sanderson do what Jordan wanted by the time we get there? Because that's where the real speculation is when we get there. Is, was this Jordan's or was this Sanderson's? And how would it have ended, do we think, if, because again, it kind of does that last book just kind of tumbles down the hill a little bit like end of Game of Thrones to some degree. And even if you can disagree with me there, but it does at least increase speed.
Oh yeah.
And I would like other people's opinions on what Jordan probably would have done, what we would like to have seen him done, and based on everything we're going over now, what we think would have happened there that ended up happening some way different.
Yeah. But my mini rant about the series is, Jordan didn't have to try and trick you into thinking Nynaeve was possibly the Dragon Reborn or any other such nonsense, because Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine all have their own arcs, and they are all doing incredibly important things to the plot, to the world, to the story world as a whole. The hunt here, as they start to get into this hunt for the Black Ajah and to try and unravel that thread, that's a big effing deal. Just in and of itself, not even paying attention to where it's going to end up, read and find out, as Jordan was fond of saying.
Well, with the boys, you have the 3 boys, and they're connected, and they all have a part, and they all have an important part that needs to happen for things to go the right way. But Rand is still central. On the females' part, they all have a part, and they all play into those other parts. And you almost can pinpoint, and it's a fine line between who is the most important woman in the series. And it comes down to Egwene and Nynaeve. You take all the other females in this whole set of books, and Egwene and Nynaeve are the central characters. And I think it's Nynaeve, personally.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would argue Egwene for future things, but for also future things, I think it's Nynaeve.
For impact, keep paying attention to what Nynaeve does, and she is incredibly impactful. And as we've talked about, and you're going to see this more and more if you haven't read this yet and you're following along, Rand and Egwene's stories kind of parallel each other. They are the male and female half, and you need both.
From the way it's written, I think Jordan intended Egwene to be the most important female in the books, but
Mhm.
I think he accidentally made Nynaeve.
Yeah, but here
But
from this
that could be how Sanderson ended it too.
could be.
Because there were a lot of things that happened later that I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but I do like that here, and it's one of those things that's more interesting when you do a reread and you see kind of where the girls end up. They are kind of a tripod here.
Mhm.
There are three legs of a stool, kind of all in it together, and all kind of contributing pretty much equal measure for the time being.
There's lots of tripods in this book. Matt Perrin and Rand, Nynaeve, Egwene, and Elaine, three girls that the Rand's ladies later. There's a lot of tripods in this.
Joe,
Guess
trying to think
maybe
if there's
Jordan was a big fan of Nikolai Tesla.
I was trying to think if there were any on the dark side, but I think if that could get into spoilery territory.
No, because he used modern mythos to kind of connect the reader's brains to evil right away, and he used that number 13
Yeah.
quite a bit because there was 13 Forsaken, 13 in a circle, and that's a writer trick where you take something that is a superstition in real life, put it in there because now you've saved yourself a shit ton of explaining because everybody automatically associates that with bad and evil and unlucky, and which I guess the threes work too because we got the Holy Trinity and other things along that line as well. By the way, new Jordan readers back in the late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, it's just the typical Jordan reader that overthinks everything. So follow along. Comment if you've overthought something and we missed it. Please comment.
We see Elsa again at the end of this chapter. Or
hey, she's supposed to be pretty, okay?
Or do we?
I feel bad for Elsa.
Because Egwene goes chasing after her, runs around the corner, and there's some incredibly beautiful woman standing there instead of Elsa.
Yeah, which you got your cover, your chapter title picture to go by as well.
To clue you in on what's going on there.
Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Yep.
So was Elaine? You said Elaine followed her, right?
Egwene went chasing.
Egwene. Was it Egwene there when they saw her with Min and Rand?
No,
it was Nynaeve was there, right?
It was just Min. It was Min. Min saw her. I don't remember who showed up first there, but Egwene showed up when Min had dragged Rand to bed, and they kind of had a cat fight moment there. Not really.
Yeah, that's what I remember, the cat fight, and then like in the next page is Celine.
But then Egwene leaves. She leaves to say she's going.
Where she left.
Yeah, she leaves and says she's going to go find Nynaeve to try and help heal him because he's in a bad way. And then that's when Celine shows up. Call me Lanfear, dear. Take care of him for me. But then Elsa, sends them off on this chase, which keep that in mind because that's a bit of a curiosity for later. So Lanfear wants them to go running out of the tower, following these leads, trying to find the Black Ajah. And all these signs point to Tyr, so clearly it's a trap. But they're not dummies, so they know it's a trap. But they got to go anyway.
And in typical Jordan fashion, they all come to the conclusion to you have to spring the trap to overcome the trap.
Trying to decide if there's anything. So I think to me, the most interesting part of chapter 27 is that when she's experimenting with the Tarangreal ring, she goes into Talon Rihad, however you say it. And she sees Perrin. And he's
Tell I Ron Riyadh, according to the glossary.
all right.
And you got to emphasize the I and the odd. Tell I Ron Riyadh.
So
there's a pronunciation guide in the back for those that are struggling with the names of things.
she runs into Perrin, and I think we can be it's pretty clear here that this is actually Perrin. But he has chained himself to a pillar and he's lolling as if asleep, but he's just kind of half asleep. And there's a big dog, except she realized it's not a dog, it's a wolf. And I have to think this was all planned ahead of time because that's the way Jordan is. I don't think it's an accident that Egwene was there when Perrin discovered about his wolf connection. And now she's the one who's seeing it in the world of dreams, even though it's going to be a really long time before they, compare notes, and actually a really long time before they compare notes. And it's like, oh yeah, you're here too. But Hopper is sitting there protecting him. So even though we've left Perrin behind, we get a glimpse that some time is passing. There's some more going on there. And when we get back to them, some time will have passed. But we see that he's messing around, or not messing around, but he is connected to the wolf dream still.
Well, and in Perrin's case, it's not like the one power dreamers. He's there when he goes to sleep. It seems like it's almost less controllable. He can gain the same control in it, but going in and out of it, it seems like he has a little less control.
Then towards the end of the chapter, actually not. So page 315 in the paperback, we see Egwene. It's not going to be explained here. It will be, keep this in mind because it will be explained later. So I'm not going to go too much into it, but Egwene does something here instinctively that we do get that from all of the main characters. And we've talked about this, there's a difference between it'll be there when you need it and training, but there is an element of instinct. That is what separates a lot of elite athletes from just athletic people, right? Is there are instincts, which are basically a whole bunch of variables combining into one moment. And so it's hard to explain exactly what happened there because it was lots of things happened there.
Well, and there's something to be said about gravitating towards your skills.
Mm-hmm.
And we just have that particular element in a storyline in a world where specific special talents are attracted to you because of the pattern of time and your place in it. And so it would make sense that they would gravitate towards someone who has that skill set to begin with.
Yeah. So she instinctively focuses and closes her eyes and says, take me where I need to be. Take me to where I can find an answer. I need to know what the Black Ajah wants. And when she opens her eyes, she has been teleported to what we already know from Rand's dreams way back when he disappeared. is the heart of the stone in Tyr. So we can already see halfway through, well, a little less than halfway through the book here, these threads are going to start to converge, as he tends to do in his climaxes of his books. Is so we already know, we've known since the beginning of the book, Rand is headed there, and now we can see the girls are going to end up heading there as well.
Oh, I forgot about Sylvie.
And then you have this curiosity of Sylvie,
Mm-hmm.
who clearly is more than she seems to be, but who exactly is she? And why is she there? More to the point.
Yeah, and in typical this person fashion, she kind of gives herself away over and over and over again.
Mhm. Now, at the very end of this chapter, right before we go into the next chapter, we have so they're making their plans after Egwene explains her dream, and they're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we do this? How do we get away? And I can't just take off. I've got to send a letter to my mother, Elaine says, or else she'll lose her crap again. And Nynaeve says, I just thought of someone who'd be happy to carry Elaine's letter for her. Happy to leave Tar Valon too. In fact, I'd bet on it.
No spoiler there.
What's interesting to me is, again, the pie chart of conflict in Wheel of Time. Matt has been here the whole time, and I don't remember exactly, but you get some clues that some time has passed here since they got to Tar Valon. At least a week, I think it is. Because I think it's in here where they grumble that it's been, the Amarillan said she was going to check in on them, keep an eye on them on their progress hunting the Black Ajah, and they haven't seen her in like a week or more. So there's been some time here, and they don't know all of Matt's skill set, but they do know he's Tavern. You didn't think to try and recruit him before now? And this is going to happen a lot, where everyone is certain they know the way it has to be. And so they don't consult with others. They don't compare notes.
Okay, so I just went back to find that spot with the time passing, and there's a huge foreshadow that I never noticed before. Talking about Matt, this is Egwene's head talking in italics. He's probably well enough to go dancing. Like, no, I probably dream about him dancing with Shanchan.
Dancing indeed.
Oh, Jordan.
Dancing indeed.
Such a sneaky little fucker. But back to your point.
And now I'm hungry again. Clad only in his breeches, Matt was just finishing a snack after breakfast. Some ham, 3 apples, bread, butter. I'm hungry. I do like that when we get in here, he is immediately cheeky. He is immediately Matt because he knows something is up because they're being too nice. And
yeah, Matt's kind of snarkily passive aggressive in his communication. He never like overtly just says no. He kind of
yeah. And I do like that it's Egwene who says, I told you we should ask him straight out. He's stubborn as any mule when he wants to be and tricks him as a cat. You are, Matt, you know it, so stop frowning. I like it that Egwene is is the one who is direct here and seeing who Matt is, and not only seeing who he is, but kind of willing to take him on his terms of, look, we'll just tell him straight out what we need, get him to promise to help us, and he'll help us.
Because again, the trickster also has that Southern honor.
Yeah, that's why I love that scene with the Amarillan when she talks about her uncle who died running into the fire, because it's such a great, spot on analysis of Matt right then and there, but then it's also great foreshadowing for the things he's going to do.
Well, and again, Elaine totally misreads him here. She tries to turn on the charm.
Are you not a loyal subject of Andor? Matt snickered. Told you that wouldn't work either. Yeah. It is, I love the books, and I've complained about this before with the three boys, but really the five main characters, you can throw Elaine in there because she rather quickly becomes kind of the sixth main character, three boys, three girls.
Which in the show, she's supposedly going to be the sixth Ta'veren.
Anyway, so you've got the three men and you've got the three women, male and female, half of the source. It's all yin yang, blah, 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 blah. It's all there. So they do have an annoying tendency to separate, and especially in kind of the mid sections of the series, stay separated. But when they come together is, I think, when the series is at its best. Like I said, because the three young men all have different personality types, then they play off of each other, they feed off of each other. It's why I think the best Superman stories are when he's paired up with Batman, and vice versa, because they are night and day. I mean, kind of literally, as that's the theme of Superman was, New York during the day, and Gotham was New York at night. That was kind of the atmosphere that the creators, the artists, went for. So because of that, they play off of each other so well, and they build off of each other so well. And so you get the same thing here, where because of the different personalities, the four of them are building off of each other. Each character is kind of getting their own moment and getting built up in your mind because of how they're playing off of each other. Which was, like everything in the series, the Amazon series was so incredibly rushed. We get very little of that interaction. And when we did get it, it was the stupid CW teen drama crap when they were all in Shinar yelling at each other. We didn't get any of this kind of stuff.
And it's sad because the way things are playing out with where Matt is, I think this scene has to be skipped. I almost think, well, I'll tell you where I think it's going when we get there in the book. But I think we're going to skip to that spot, and I'll bring it up when we get there.
So he says he'll do it, so he's going to do it, and he thinks he's just pulled a fast one on the Amarillan and the White Tower. That he's going to be able to use this to get out.
The letter.
The letter.
Yeah.
And then the next chapter is the girls getting ready to leave before things get weird and interesting. And that's where we find out the Elsa wasn't Elsa, because she was sent away weeks ago because she kept trying to sneak off with the grooms and was more interested in finding a guy than learning the power.
See, if only Matt had met the real Elsa, not the fake Elsa.
So clearly someone else has been masquerading as her. And I guess we haven't really seen that yet. But yeah, so someone's been masquerading as her. And so why was the person who was masquerading as her feeding the girls into this trap? Even more so. It almost seems like then that person is working with the other people, which is odd. Might have more to talk about that when we get to the climax of this book to say how and why did all this come together? Because there are some interesting threads here that make me go, I'm not sure that makes sense.
Yeah, especially knowing, I won't say it too spoilery.
All right, so do we want to go ahead and get into Matt again, or do we want to leave it off there? Because this next section is a big section of Matt. It's like 3 or 4 chapters of Matt as he's leaving Tarvalon. And there are some very interesting things that happen here.
Well, yeah, let's go ahead and go all the way up until we get back to Perrin again.
Okay.
Because we don't need to overthink some of these things with the Matt. It's cool as hell, but as far as overanalyzing.
Right. So chapters 30, 31, 32 is where he's taking off. And 30 is...
by the way, this is where I think the show is going to pick up with Matt again.
Yeah.
So this is my prediction.
And the chapter 30 is one of those that took a couple of reads before it really sunk in, because it's written kind of like a fever dream, because that's the state Matt is in. He's caught up in whatever is going on here, and he doesn't really know what it is, but he can't stop himself. So he just keeps going, just keeps throwing the dice, and everything's coming up Millhouse. I mean, Matt, right? And we've kind of seen or heard that he's lucky, that he is something of a trickster and a gambler, and he is lucky. But this is a whole nother level. And I don't think it's ever explained. And I kind of like that, but it is a bit of a head scratcher.
Well, yeah, we talked about this previously. And, we've got Rand, who is obviously the reborn chosen one. We've got Perrin, who is also Ta'veren, who has unlocked something that is seemingly been lost, and also came across the only other person in the world who has dealt with it positively. And now we've got Matt, who has this thing going on within him that involves we've got this fate oriented world with the pattern, but now what's choice and what's luck, right? And he seems to mold luck around himself.
So somehow chance seems to suspend itself around him.
And so we've got this guy who has this other thing that might be something lost in Age of Old, but he's the one person that won't tell anybody about it ever. So
do you think it's coincidence that it started here, though? Or do you think there is some sort of connection to the holes, the trauma that he suffered, and kind of the holes in his mind and in his soul, if you will, because of the cleansing that was required from the Erdhole dagger?
Well, again, that's where you toe the line of fate and choice. And was finding the dagger actually lucky for him? Because he would never untap some of these other things if he had never found the dagger, and if he had never been mischievous enough to just grab it and hide it from everybody. So you're kind of towing that line. But as far as what manifests from it, that's why it shows up now, because he was finally officially freed of this thing, and it left basically him open. He was weak. So when you get sick, right? So yeah, I know it's in the reverse direction, but it's a good analogy. If you do a really hard workout and then you get hammered drunk and you don't eat properly, the next bacteria or virus has a greater chance of infecting you.
Mhm.
So he just went through a process which almost depleted him to the point of death, right? And this is in this world on the level of his soul and not just his brain and his body. So on the level of his soul, he was depleted, and it gives room for something else to move in. And luckily, it's something that makes him lucky. That's my 2 cents.
It makes as much sense as anything else. I don't know if anyone else has any ideas that.
But
that
again,
you
we
wanna
never get a
comment.
full explanation, but he's
Yeah.
also the one who would never talk to anybody
Right.
to get guidance.
And it's one of those things that I don't mind. I like that there's a lot of mystery left in the Wheel of Time. That, yeah, we get, sometimes we get too much explanation. He really gives us a lot of detail, and sometimes Jordan leaves some mystery, and I like that.
Well, and it makes sense too, because we've got 3 boys that bend the world around them to some degree.
Yeah.
And the way they bend the world around them actually coincides with their personality types.
Hmm.
So we look at when Perrin has his interactions and that Tavern comes out, it's always in a process that's very conscientious because that's him. That's his nature. He's building, he's fixing the puzzle, he's doing whatever systematically in a process driven way. Rand is influence. Rand goes out there and he basically bends people's knees to his presence when the time needs it. And Matt, well, he likes to do his own thing, which takes a little bit of luck. He likes to jump from this branch to the next, not knowing if the next branch is broken or not. And so the world bends around these 3 boys in the direction that matches their personality.
Mhm. And not just in the dice, because we get this at the end here, the very end of this chapter is when he's running along the rooftops, and all of a sudden there's somebody there trying to stab him, and he just happens to get his quarterstaff tangled up in the guy's legs, and they fall off, and he lands on top of the guy. So he's okay, and the guy, I think it's pretty clear this is a gray man, right? Because all of a sudden he's just there when Matt turns around. And he's lucky. Bad luck for you, fellow, but good luck for him. And then we get back to Thom. Good old Thom.
This is where I think we're going to start in the series.
Yeah.
Matt's back in Tar Valon, as
He's
confirmed by
right.
rewatching it. And
what I don't understand is then, okay, but all right, then what do they do with them? Because here, Matt has
Thom has a father moment. That's the best thing that can come out of it, is you abandoned your friends kind of thing.
But I like that the kind of the shoes on the other foot here, that Thom, when we last saw him, or when Matt last saw him, we saw him in the Great Hunt, but when Matt last saw him, it was him saving them from the Madral as they run off. And now Thom is the one that needs help. And Matt has a clear direction. He's going to Camelin to deliver this letter, as well as getting the heck out of Tar Valon. And here's this guy, that friend, even though he hasn't seen him in a while, saved his life. Well, now it's Matt's turn. And so he needs to get him out of this drunken stupor depression that he's in. But I love the very male way he does it, which is, what place is worse than Tar Valon? Camelin. Come with me to Camelin, Thom. Sure. Camelin suits my mood.
Which we don't know why till later, but you will find out.
Yeah, we don't know all of it, but the last time we saw Basil Gill, I think he explained a little bit of it. When in Eye of the World. So we do know some of it. Anyway, I don't think there's much to say about this last chapter with Matt jumping onto the boat and and clearly people are after him. But I don't know that he's fully accepted that yet. Because there were those, besides the gray man, there were those two that were trying to find him when he was in the hiding in the alley. And I think it's safe to think that those two are part of this group that sneaks in to try and kill him here on the boat. So he's obviously a marked man, but I don't think he's still completely bought it yet. And then we get a really depressing scene with Matt to finish off the chapter, or with Rand to finish off the chapter. Where he's sitting,
was that?
He's sitting in the dark playing Tom's old flute, thinking about all the horrible things that has happened to him as Baalzamon has tried to coerce or tempt him into turning. Yeah, and he's going a little bit crazy because he's afraid to go to sleep. So he's sleep deprived on top of being overly physically exerted because he's running halfway across the continent.
And also, don't forget, he still has the trauma of finding out he's the guy that will destroy the world or save it or both.
But everyone's going to hate him and he has to die. So
yeah,
sucks to be him.
And his side hurts really bad.
Really bad. So that's all I got on that. We get back to
go into Russian sleep studies. You want some wicked ass science.
Oh yeah.
Oh gosh. Those were morbid. It didn't even take that much. I think it was 5 days without sleep. And they started eating themselves and
just going back crap psychotic. Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh. Yeah. The things we know because bad scientists did bad things under bad regimes. Those were horrid. Yeah. The Soviets were great with using political prisoners to be test subjects for scientific experiments.
But hey, on the bright side, we get back to Perrin next time and we get to have a little bit of levity.
And we meet another of my favorite bit characters, Gaul.
Yep. So we will do that next time. If y'all have any thoughts or comments on what we've been talking about, any speculations, go ahead and comment below.
And if you let me throw this part out there too. If you think of something that might help us be a little bit more amiable to the public, expand our reach, something we should talk about, ways we can do our titles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're always open to advice. Obviously, we're new at this. This will be 67, 67 episodes in, but we're still technically new at this. And yeah, anything you think would help the process or you want to see.
Yep.
So awesome.
All right. Go be healthy.